The alarm system screamed across the bridge of the Alliance command ship Eternal Guardian as red warning lights painted everything in blood. General Corvin Blackscale's massive clawed hands gripped the command console while his golden serpentine eyes stared at the tactical display showing complete devastation. His 7-foot reptilian frame, covered in dark emerald scales that had survived the acid rains of Scorian, trembled with barely contained rage. How many ships did we lose this time? Corvin's voice rumbled like grinding stone through his razor-sharp teeth. 43 vessels, sir, replied his communications officer, a thin blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms frantically working multiple control panels. The enemy deployed only 5 ships. 5 against our entire 7th fleet. Corvin's claws scraped deep grooves into the metal armrest. 43 ships destroyed by just 5 enemy vessels. The Crimson Syndicate had been terrorizing the Outer Rim for 2 years now, and their technology seemed impossible to defeat. Their ships moved like liquid shadow through space. Their weapons cut through the strongest shields like paper, and their tactics were unlike anything the Void Hunters Alliance had ever faced. Lieutenant Zara Nightwind's crystalline blue form appeared on the main communication screen, her delicate wings folded behind her slender frame. She commanded the scout ship Wind Dancer from her position 3 sectors away. Her people came from Arion, where the eternal storms created warriors who could fly through hurricane winds and see through the darkest clouds. General Corvin, Zara's voice carried the musical quality of wind chimes in a storm. Our long-range sensors detected something unusual. There's an unknown ship approaching from the unexplored regions beyond the Helix Nebula. Corvin nodded slowly, his tail lashing behind him with frustration. The Void Hunters Alliance represented 12 different species, all from worlds that tried to kill them every day. His own people from Scorian fought giant acid-spitting serpents and survived in underground cities where the very air could dissolve metal. Zara's winged people from Arion lived in floating cities, constantly battling storm giants and lightning drakes. Every member species had evolved to survive impossible conditions, but none of that mattered against the Crimson Syndicate's mysterious technology. What kind of ship? Corvin asked, though he barely cared anymore. After losing so many battles, he was willing to listen to anyone. It's small, sir. Very primitive looking compared to our vessels or the Syndicate's technology. The hull design seems almost childlike, white and blue with strange markings. They're requesting permission to dock and claim to be from a planet called Earth. Corvin had never heard of Earth, and neither had anyone else in the command center. But after watching his finest warriors die against an enemy they couldn't understand, he was desperate enough to consider any option. Grant them docking permission, he decided. At this point, what do we have to lose? As the strange vessel approached their hidden base on asteroid Omega Prime, Corvin wondered if these newcomers could possibly help where the galaxy's greatest warriors had failed. The ship looked nothing like the deadly warships he was used to seeing. Instead of the jagged edges and weapon-covered hulls that marked proper warships, this vessel called Horizon's Edge appeared smooth and peaceful. Captain Dante Cross stepped off the transport shuttle into the docking bay with confident strides. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and warm brown eyes that seemed to take in every detail around him. Behind him came 2 other humans, a woman with long auburn hair carrying some kind of scanning device, and a younger man whose alert eyes constantly surveyed their surroundings. General Corvin met them at the airlock, his massive scaled form towering over the 3 humans. The newcomers barely reached his chest, and they looked so fragile that a strong wind might break them. Lieutenant Zara's ethereal form stood beside him, her wings catching the light as she studied these strange visitors with curiosity. "I am General Corvin of the Void Hunters Alliance," he said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You claim to be from Earth?" Captain Cross stepped forward without showing any fear, even though he was looking up at a 7-foot reptilian warrior with claws that could slice through steel plating. I'm Captain Dante Cross, commander of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. These are Dr. Luna Riverside, our xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Phoenix Sterling, our tactical specialist." Dr. Riverside smiled warmly and raised her scanning device with obvious excitement. "Remarkable. Your species evolved from reptilian ancestors, didn't you? And you," she turned to Lieutenant Zara, "your bone structure suggests aerial adaptation. Beautiful wing design for atmospheric flight." Zara's form shimmered with surprise. Most species were either afraid or overly respectful when meeting her for the first time. This human seemed genuinely fascinated rather than intimidated. "You are very small," General Corvin observed, "and your ship appears primitive. What kind of Deathworld could have produced such apparently fragile beings?" Lieutenant Sterling laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the metal corridor. "Fragile, sir. You should visit Earth during tornado season, or when our supervolcanoes decide to wake up, or when the tectonic plates start shifting. Then there are the hurricanes, tsunamis, ice ages, and asteroid impacts. Your world has all of these dangers?" Zara asked, her voice chiming with amazement. "Oh, that's just the natural disasters," Dr. Riverside said, still scanning everything around her with childlike wonder. "Wait until you hear about our wars, plagues, and the fact that 99% of all species that ever lived on Earth went extinct." General Corvin led them to the main briefing room, where holographic displays showed the devastating results of their recent battle against the Crimson Syndicate. Broken ships, casualty reports, tactical analyses, all evidence of their repeated failures against an enemy they couldn't comprehend. "This is our enemy," Corvin explained, bringing up images of the Syndicate's sleek, shadow-black vessels. "For 2 years, they've been destroying everything we send against them. Their technology is beyond our understanding, and their tactics are completely unpredictable." Captain Cross studied the displays with intense focus, his eyes moving over every detail of the enemy ship's design, weapon placements, and attack patterns. "How many times have you engaged them in direct combat?" 15 major battles, Zara replied, her crystalline form pulsing with frustration. "Each time we lose. More ships than we can afford to replace. They seem to anticipate our every move." "Anticipate," Lieutenant Sterling repeated thoughtfully, leaning forward in his chair. "Do they use the same tactics in each engagement? Same formations, same response patterns?" Corvin's serpentine eyes narrowed with confusion. "They're master strategists. Their tactics are always flawless and perfectly adapted to each situation." "Perfect adaptation," Sterling mused, glancing at Captain Cross. "Sir, could we review recordings of these battles?" For the next several hours, the humans studied every piece of data the Alliance had collected on the Crimson Syndicate. They examined battle recordings, analyzed weapon signatures, and studied movement patterns with an intensity that surprised the Alliance. Commanders. Dr. Riverside pointed at energy readings on her scanner. "Their shield harmonics follow a mathematical progression. Look, every 42 seconds, there's a resonance gap in their defensive grid that lasts exactly 1.7 seconds. But that gap is too brief to exploit," Zara protested. "No weapon system can target with that level of precision." "Human weapon systems can," Sterling said quietly, running calculations on a small device. "Captain, their attack patterns aren't random either. They're using optimization algorithms based on mathematical models of combat efficiency." General Corvin's claws scraped against the conference table. "You believe you can defeat the Crimson Syndicate with mathematics?" "Not defeat," Captain Cross corrected calmly. "Understand. In human military history, we've learned something crucial. No matter how advanced an enemy appears, if they rely on perfect mathematical models, they become predictable once you crack their code. Your species has extensive military experience?" Corvin asked, surprised by the revelation. Dr. Riverside's warm smile faded slightly. "General, humans have been fighting wars for over 12,000 years. We've battled with stone weapons, metal blades, chemical explosives, nuclear weapons that could destroy continents, and energy weapons that could crack planets. We've fought in every environment imaginable, underwater, underground, in Arctic, wastelands, scorching deserts, and the vacuum of space itself. You fight your own species? Zara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Constantly, Cross admitted. Humans don't just adapt to hostile environments, we adapt to hostile enemies who can think, plan, learn, and evolve their tactics. Every human officer studies thousands of battles fought against other humans who were trying to outsmart them. He gestured toward the displays showing syndicate ships. Your enemy fights like they're facing natural disasters, predictable, environmental threats that respond the same way every time. They've never encountered an adversary that studies their patterns, learns from defeats, and adapts faster than they can compensate. The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Alliance commanders had always fought with courage, strength, and the survival instincts born from Deathworlds. But they had never approached warfare as an intellectual puzzle to be solved through careful analysis and adaptation. "What do you need from us?" General Corvin asked finally. "Complete access to all tactical data," Sterling replied immediately. "Every engagement, every weapon scan, every communication intercept. We need to understand not just what the Syndicate does, but how they think. And we'll need to modify our ship," Cross added. "Dr. Riverside has some theories about disrupting their shield harmonics and weapon targeting systems." As the humans began working with Alliance engineers and scientists, General Corvin felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. These small, seemingly fragile beings with their quiet confidence and analytical minds might actually succeed where the galaxy's most formidable warriors had failed. The hunt for the Crimson Syndicate was about to begin, and for the first time, the prey might become the predator. The modified Horizon's Edge drifted silently through the Crimson Nebula, its hull gleaming with new alien technology grafted onto human engineering. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the ship's expanded laboratory, her fingers dancing across holographic displays showing energy patterns that would have been impossible to detect just days ago. Her long auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, but nothing could hide the excitement burning in her emerald eyes as she studied the readings. "Dante, you need to see this," she called to Captain Cross, who was reviewing tactical plans with Lieutenant Sterling on the bridge. "The Syndicate ships aren't just using advanced technology, they're using living technology." Captain Cross moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his familiar cologne mixed with the metallic scent of the ship's recycled air. Their shoulders brushed as he leaned over to examine her findings, sending an unexpected shiver through her body that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature controls. "Living technology?" he asked, his warm brown eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "The hull signatures show organic compounds integrated with metallic structures," Elena explained, trying to focus on the data instead of how his presence seemed to fill the small laboratory. "It's like the ships are partially alive, which would explain their unpredictable movement patterns and adaptive capabilities." Before Cross could respond, the ship's communications system activated. Commander Thane Ironheart's crystalline form appeared on the main display, his entire body composed of what looked like living diamond that refracted light into brilliant rainbows. He commanded the Alliance heavy cruiser Crystal Forge and had been skeptical of the human plan from the beginning. "Captain Cross," Thane's voice resonated like crystal chimes, "our sensors have detected Syndicate activity in the Void Reach sector. 3 ships are attacking a civilian transport convoy from the water world Thalasos." Elena watched as Cross's expression hardened with determination. She had learned to read his moods over the past few days of working together, and she could see the protective instinct that drove him to risk everything for strangers. "We're moving to intercept," Cross decided. "Commander Thane, coordinate with General Corvin's task force." We'll test our new tactics against a smaller syndicate group before attempting to engage their main fleet. As the horizon's edge changed course toward the battle zone, Elena found herself staying close to the bridge instead of returning to her laboratory. She told herself it was because her xenobiological expertise might be needed, but honestly, she just wanted to be near Dante during the coming fight. The Void Reach sector was a graveyard of shattered asteroids and cosmic debris, perfect for ambush tactics. When they arrived, Elena's breath caught in her throat at the sight before them. 3 sleek syndicate vessels, each one looking like liquid shadow given form, circled a massive passenger ship like predators toying with wounded prey. The transport vessel Ocean's Dream was listing badly. Its hull breached in multiple places, escape pods scattered across space like seeds on the wind. "My God," Elena whispered, pressing closer to the viewport. "There must be thousands of civilians on that ship." Cross's jaw tightened as he studied the tactical display. "Phoenix, what's our analysis of their attack pattern?" Lieutenant Sterling's fingers flew over his controls, running calculations at superhuman speed. "The syndicate ships are using a standard encirclement formation, sir. They're prolonging the attack deliberately, possibly studying the transport's defensive systems or terrorizing the passengers. Or feeding," Elena said quietly, her xenobiologist training making her consider darker possibilities. "If their technology is partially organic, they might be harvesting biological energy or studying alien physiology." The communication system crackled to life with a transmission from the transport ship. A desperate voice filled with barely controlled panic spoke in the melodious language of the Thalasso's water dwellers. Elena's universal translator converted the words into something they could understand. "This is Captain Marina Deep Current of the Ocean's Dream. We have 15,000 civilians aboard, including spawning families with newborn offspring. Our defensive systems are failing and we cannot escape. Please, if anyone receives this transmission, we need immediate assistance." Elena felt tears burning in her eyes at the desperation in the alien captain's voice. Without thinking, she reached out and grasped Cross's hand, needing the comfort of human contact in the face of such tragedy. "We can't let this happen," she said, surprised by the fierce protectiveness in her own voice. Cross squeezed her hand gently, his thumb tracing over her knuckles in a gesture that sent warmth spreading through her entire body. "We won't," he promised, his voice carrying absolute conviction. But before they could move to help, space around them suddenly filled with new ships as Commander Thane's task force dropped out of hyperspace. The Crystal Forge materialized in a flash of rainbow light, followed by General Corvin's command ship Eternal Guardian and a dozen other Alliance vessels. "This is where we test everything we've learned," Cross announced over the fleet communication channel. "Remember, the Syndicate expects us to charge in with brute force. Instead, we're going to give them something they've never seen before: human tactical innovation." Elena watched in fascination as the human plan unfolded. Instead of the direct assault tactics favored by the Alliance, the combined fleet split into multiple small groups that approached from different vectors. The horizon's edge led one group directly toward the Syndicate ships, appearing to be mounting a traditional rescue attempt. The Syndicate vessels responded exactly as Sterling had predicted, moving into a defensive formation that would allow them to concentrate their fire on the approaching rescue ships. But what they didn't realize was that Dr. Riverside's modifications to the Alliance sensor arrays had mapped their shield harmonics perfectly. Now, Cross ordered quietly. Space erupted in coordinated fire as the hidden Alliance ships struck from multiple directions simultaneously. But instead of random weapons fire, every shot was precisely timed to hit the Syndicate shields during their brief harmonic gaps. The mathematical precision was beautiful to watch, like a deadly dance, choreographed by human tactical genius. For the first time since the conflict began, Syndicate shields flickered and failed under the assault. One of their ships staggered, its organic hull bleeding strange fluids into the vacuum of space. Elena gasped in amazement. It's working. Their regenerative capabilities are overwhelmed when multiple systems fail simultaneously. But the Syndicate wasn't helpless. The damaged ship began to glow with an eerie purple light, and Elena's sensors detected massive energy buildup in its core. They're going to self-destruct, she realized with horror. The explosion will destroy the civilian transport. Without hesitation, Cross grabbed the helm controls. Elena, hold on. The Horizon's Edge accelerated directly toward the overloading Syndicate vessel, positioning itself between the enemy ship and the civilian transport. Elena was thrown against Cross as the ship's inertial dampeners struggled with the sudden maneuvers. Her body pressed against his solid chest as his arms instinctively wrapped around her to keep her safe. For a moment, time seemed suspended as they held each other while death approached in the form of an alien ship about to explode. Elena could feel Cross's heart beating rapidly against her cheek, could smell the warm human scent of his skin, could see the fierce determination in his eyes as he prepared to sacrifice himself to save thousands of innocent civilians. I won't let you die alone, she whispered, reaching up to touch his face gently. Before he could respond, Commander Thane's voice filled the bridge. Captain Cross, we're tractoring your ship clear. Brace for emergency translation. The Crystal Forge's powerful tractor beam grabbed the Horizon's Edge and yanked it to safety, just as the Syndicate ship exploded in a brilliant flash of purple fire. The explosion was contained by Alliance deflector shields, saving both the human ship and the civilian transport. As the immediate danger passed, Elena realized she was still in Cross's arms, their faces inches apart. The intensity of nearly dying together had stripped away all pretense, and she could see her own feelings reflected in his eyes. Elena, he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. I know, she whispered back. I feel it too. Their first kiss was gentle, tender, filled with the relief of survival and the acknowledgement of something deeper that had been growing between them since they met. Elena felt like she was melting into him, every nerve ending alive with sensation as his hands tangled in her hair. They were interrupted by Lieutenant Sterling's voice from the bridge. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the rescued transport. Captain Deep Current wants to thank us personally. Reluctantly breaking apart, Cross and Elena made their way to the communications console where the image of an ethereal aquatic being appeared. Captain Marina Deep Current looked like a creature from Earth's deepest ocean myths, translucent blue skin, large dark eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of the seas, and flowing fins that moved gracefully even in the ship's artificial gravity. Humans of Earth, Marina said, her voice carrying the sound of distant waves. You have saved 15,000 lives today. The spawn mothers of Thalasos will sing songs of your courage for 1,000 generations. Elena felt a warm glow of pride at the alien captain's words, but it was Cross's response that made her heart swell with emotion. We did what anyone should do, Captain Deepcurrent. Protecting innocent life is not heroism, it's simply being human. As the rescue operations continued and they prepared to escort the damaged transport to safety, Elena realized that something fundamental had changed. The humans hadn't just proven their tactical abilities to the Alliance, they had shown what it meant to fight, not for conquest or glory, but for the protection of all life. And in the process, she had discovered that her feelings for Dante Cross ran deeper than professional admiration. In the darkness of space, surrounded by alien allies and enemies, she had found something she never expected to find among the stars: love. The war against the Crimson Syndicate was far from over, but for the first time, Elena believed they might actually win. And whatever happened next, she knew she wanted to face it at Dante's side. As the combined fleet set course for the next phase of their campaign, Elena caught Cross watching her with a soft smile that made her pulse quicken. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with mysteries they were only beginning to understand, But some mysteries were worth solving together. The Grand Council chamber aboard the massive station. Unity's dawn hummed with tension as representatives from 47 different species gathered for what many believed would be the final confrontation with the Crimson Syndicate. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood at the central podium, his diplomatic uniform crisp and formal. But his mind was focused on the breathtaking figure seated in the aquatic delegations section. Princess Vera Moonlight of Thalassos floated gracefully. In her specialized environmental suit, the transparent biomembrane allowing her natural luminescence to shine through like captured starlight. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow with an inner radiance, and her large, expressive eyes held depths that reminded Jake of Earth's deepest oceans. When she spoke during the diplomatic sessions, her voice carried the musical quality of waves, caressing distant shores. Jake had been negotiating with alien dignitaries for over a decade, but he had never encountered anyone who affected him the way Princess Vera did. Every time their eyes met across the council chamber, he felt something electric pass between them, a connection that transcended species, barriers, and spoke to something deeper than politics or duty. "The Syndicate's main fleet has been located," announced General Rex Stormfang, rising to his full 8-foot height from the Jungle World delegation. His muscular frame was covered in ritual scars and bioluminescent tattoos that pulsed with his heartbeat. Massive tusks jutted from his lower jaw, and his eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. "Our scouts report over 200 ships massed in the dark nebula, preparing for a final assault on our core worlds." Princess Vera's melodious voice filled the chamber as she activated her translation matrix. "The spawn worlds of Thalassos pledge our deep-sea fleets to this alliance. Our bioships can survive in environments that would destroy conventional vessels." Jake felt his heart race as she spoke, not just from her words, but from the way she moved with fluid grace, even in the artificial gravity. He had spent countless hours learning about Thalassos culture, discovering that her people communicated as much through bioluminescent patterns on their skin as through spoken language. Right now, the soft blue glow emanating from her temple ridges indicated deep emotional commitment, but he wondered if there was something more personal hidden in those shifting lights. Ambassador Morrison, General Stormfang's rumbling voice interrupted his thoughts. "What does Earth contribute to this final battle?" Jake straightened, forcing himself to focus on the diplomatic challenges at hand. "Earth pledges not just our military capabilities, but our strategic coordination expertise. We've analyzed the Syndicate's attack patterns and identified a critical weakness in their command structure." He activated the holographic display, showing the complex network of Syndicate ships arranged in perfect mathematical formations. They rely on quantum-linked communication between their vessels, allowing for instantaneous coordination across vast distances. But this same system creates a vulnerability. If we can disrupt the quantum entanglement at the source, their entire fleet becomes isolated and unable to coordinate. Princess Vera leaned forward in her floating chair, her bioluminescent patches shifting to a pattern Jake had learned indicated intense curiosity. "How do you propose to achieve this disruption?" "A three-pronged assault," Jake explained, his eyes meeting hers as he spoke. "Captain Cross and Dr. Vasquez will lead a stealth team to infiltrate the Syndicate command ship and plant quantum disruptors. General Corvin's heavy battle groups will engage their main fleet in direct combat to mask the infiltration. And Princess Vera's bioships will use their natural electromagnetic fields to amplify the disruption signal across the entire enemy formation." The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates debated the plan's merits and risks. But Jake found himself watching Vera's reaction, noting how her skin patterns shifted to what he recognized as the Thalassos equivalent of admiration mixed with concern. As the session concluded and delegates dispersed to their quarters, Jake noticed Vera lingering near the observation deck that offered a spectacular view of the nebula beyond. Gathering his courage, he approached her floating platform. "Princess Vera," he said softly, "might I have a word?" She turned toward him, and Jake was struck once again by her ethereal beauty. In the soft lighting of the observation deck, her translucent skin seemed to glow with inner starlight, and her movements carried the fluid grace of someone born in an aquatic environment. "Ambassador Morrison," she replied, her voice carrying subtle harmonics that made his name sound like music. "I had hoped we might speak privately." They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching distant stars wheel slowly past the massive windows. Jake found himself acutely aware of Vera's presence beside him, the gentle luminescence of her skin, the way her biosuit's membrane made soft rippling sounds as she moved, the faint scent of ocean depths that seemed to surround her. "I must confess something," Vera said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "When your people first came to our aid, I thought humans were simply another warrior species seeking glory in battle. But watching you work, seeing how you approach conflict as a puzzle to be solved rather than an enemy to be destroyed, it has changed my understanding of what strength truly means." Jake felt his pulse quicken. "Princess, please," she interrupted gently. "When we are alone, call me Vera. I grow weary of titles and formalities." "Vera," he said, testing her name on his lips and finding it perfect. "I need you to know that this mission is dangerous. The Syndicate won't hesitate to target your bioships, and if something happened to you—" She moved closer, close enough that he could see the complex patterns of bioluminescence shifting beneath her skin like living constellations. "Are you concerned for my safety as an ally, Ambassador, or as something more?" The question hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Jake realized this was the moment that would define not just their personal relationship, but potentially the future of human-Thalasso's relations for generations to come. "As something much more," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "Vera, I know we're from different worlds, different species, but what I feel for you goes beyond anything I've ever experienced. You're brilliant, compassionate, brave, and beautiful in ways that make my heart stop every time I see you." Vera's skin patterns shifted to what Jake recognized as deep joy, mixed with something that might have been love. "On Thalassos, we believe that souls can recognize each other across any distance, any difference. When I first saw you speak in the council chambers, when I watched you fight not for conquest, but for protection of innocent life, I felt that recognition." They were interrupted by General Stormfang's approach, his heavy footsteps echoing through the observation deck. "Ambassador Princess, forgive the intrusion, but we have received urgent intelligence from our scouts." Jake and Vera turned toward the massive general, though Jake noticed that Vera's hand had somehow found its way into his during their conversation. "What have you learned?" Jake asked. "The Syndicate isn't just massing for an attack," Stormfang rumbled, his bioluminescent tattoos pulsing with agitation. "They're preparing some kind of massive ritual. Our deep scouts report energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. They appear to be attempting to open a permanent gateway to another dimension." Vera's grip on Jake's hand tightened. "If they succeed in bringing reinforcements from another reality... the war would be over before it truly begins," Jake finished grimly. "How long do we have?" 72 hours, Stormfang replied. "After that, whatever they're planning will be irreversible." As the general departed to coordinate the fleet preparations, Jake and Vera found themselves alone again with the weight of impending battle hanging over them. "Jake," Vera said softly, "if we don't survive the next few days... we will survive," he said firmly, bringing her luminescent hand to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to her fingertips. "I refuse to accept any other outcome. But if we don't," she continued, "I want you to know that these past weeks, getting to know you, seeing the universe through human eyes, it has been the most beautiful experience of my life." Jake felt something shift inside him, a certainty that transcended logic or diplomacy. "Vera, when this is over, I want to ask you something important, something that will change both our lives forever." Her bioluminescent patterns shifted to pure golden light, the thalasso's expression for overwhelming happiness. "And I want to give you the answer that my heart has been singing since the day we met." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of preparation, strategy sessions, and fleet movements. The Unity Coalition assembled the largest military force in galactic history, over 3,000 ships from dozens of worlds, each contributing their unique capabilities to the final assault. As the human stealth team prepared for their infiltration mission, Jake found himself in the hangar bay watching Captain Cross and Dr. Vasquez make their final preparations. The couple moved with perfect synchronization, their bond having grown stronger through shared danger and mutual trust. "Take care of each other," Jake told them as they prepared to board their modified infiltration craft. Cross gripped his hand firmly. "You too, Ambassador. And Jake, when you get back, don't waste time wondering, what if? Life's too short and the universe too vast to let love slip away." As the combined fleet moved toward the Dark Nebula and their final confrontation with the Crimson Syndicate, Jake stood on the bridge of Princess Vera's bioship Deep Current. The vessel itself was a marvel, a living entity bred from the depths of Thalassos, its organic hull capable of healing damage and adapting to hostile environments. Vera floated beside him in her command position, her skin patterns now showing the complex geometries that indicated battle readiness. "The biofleet is in position," she reported. "We're ready to amplify the quantum disruption signal when Captain Cross plants the devices." "All ships report ready," came General Corvin's voice over the communication system. "The Syndicate fleet is directly ahead. By the burning moons of Scorian, there are so many of them." Jake studied the tactical display showing the enemy formation. 200 sleek Syndicate vessels arranged in perfect mathematical precision, their organic hulls gleaming like black oil under the nebula's strange light. At the center of the formation, a massive command ship pulsed with the otherworldly energies of their dimensional gateway project. "All units, this is Ambassador Morrison," Jake announced over the fleet communication channel. "Today we fight not for conquest or glory, but for the right of all species to exist free from tyranny. The Syndicate believes that perfection comes through domination, but we know that true strength comes from diversity, cooperation, and love." As he spoke, Jake felt Vera's hand slip into his, her touch sending strength and comfort through his entire being. "Today we show the galaxy that different species, different worlds, different ways of thinking can unite as one. For the Unity Coalition, for freedom, for love." The battle cry echoed across 3,000 ships as the largest fleet in Galactic history charged toward their destiny. But Jake's attention was focused on the woman beside him, whose bioluminescent patterns now showed the complex interplay of love and determination that made his heart soar. Whatever happened in the next few hours, he knew that he had found something worth fighting for beyond duty or politics. He had found love among the stars, and that love would light their way through the darkness ahead. The final battle for the galaxy's freedom was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapon wouldn't be technology or tactics, it would be the power of hearts united across the vast distances between worlds. As the first weapon's fire lit up space between the two fleets, Jake squeezed Vera's hand and smiled. "Ready to change the galaxy together?" Her answering smile was radiant as starlight. "Always, my love, always." The war would end here, in the Dark Nebula, where love had conquered not just the space between stars, but the barriers between hearts. And in that victory, the true unity of the galaxy would finally begin.